Okay, welcome everyone. We're so excited for you to join us to meet our new director of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at the University of West Georgia. We have Quinna Hogan, who has graciously agreed to join us to speak to alumni on an evening. And so we're so grateful to have you here. I think a lot of people have met you since you've started. You started in September, right, Quinna?
August.
August, okay.
Just got here in September.
Okay, perfect. So you've been here with us through the fall, and so starting spring semester now. So it's gone fast. I know we've done a lot in just a few months' time. A lot of folks have had an opportunity to meet you, but not everyone has, particularly within the broader alumni community. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your own journey with Greek life, kind of walk us through from your introduction to Greek life and to how you're involved today?
Yeah, totally. So hi everyone, I'm Quinna Hogan. I use she, her pronouns. And as Kate so graciously introduced me as the new director of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at the University of West Georgia. Go West, go Wolves. So a little bit about me. So I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised. And after I graduated high school, I went to a little town called Bowling Green, Kentucky, where I attended Western Kentucky University all 4 years. Go Hilltoppers. And that is where I had the pleasure of joining my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. However, my journey with Greek life actually started before I even got to college. So when I tell my story about my journey, I really think about the moments that I had when I was in elementary school, when I was in middle school, where I was surrounded by women that I didn't recognize when I was a kid, but I recognized as an adult were members of this organization. And so I remember my first real kind of like conversation with a member. I had to be in like seventh grade. My seventh grade science teacher was a member of my now beloved organization. And she came in, it was raining that day, and she came in and she had an umbrella and it was pink and green. And all of us were like, Miss Duncan, Miss Duncan, like, what does that mean? What is that? Like, can you tell us what that is? And so she explained what it was. And so we were like, ooh, that's cool. And from there, really, I kept meeting women that were a part of this organization. Now, I will say, like most freshmen, I was pretty cocky when I got to college. Who isn't, right? And funny enough, my first RA when I got to campus was a member as well too. And I remember going up to her door one night. I don't know what was going on, but I said to her, "I'm gonna be a member of your organization," which she immediately rebutted with, "Shh, you ain't supposed to say that," is what she said. And so I think for me, like I said, I've had a fantastic journey in regards to being a part of this organization. I definitely credit my undergraduate experience to be able to really guide me to where I am today in regards to my career. And so yeah, I have loved my organization since I joined. I'm still a current active member as well. And so I can't say anything more than that.
Wonderful. Thank you. And as you introduced yourself, I realized that I don't know that I introduced myself. So I will back up a little bit and let those of you on the call who don't know me yet know that my name is Kate Petty. I'm a director of alumni and constituent engagement here at UWG. Quinna and I work very closely together, especially with alumni board initiatives and reunions and things like that. So thank you for telling us about how you got started in your organization. Can you guide us through kind of your professional journey that got you to West Georgia, and then why UWG, why now? Like, why is this the place that is the right fit for your career at this time?
Yeah. So I actually like this question because I tell people all the time, I didn't know what a UWG was when I applied. I saw the position, like I said, from where I was coming from, which I'll talk about in a second. I think I'm gonna answer the why UWG, the why now first, and then kind of go back. So for me, I felt it was time for me to elevate, if I'm being honest, in my career. And I saw UWG as an opportunity for that growth and development that I was looking for the next step in my career. And so that's really why now. And then it's also why UWG. I think that for fraternity and sorority life, we're in this pinnacle moment, right? I think a lot of our alum of the fraternity sorority life system, I have heard the cries, I have heard the sentiments that they all share in regards to wanting FSL to return to its glory days, as I'm gonna call it. And that's really why, right? I think I was a good fit for the institution in regards to bringing that back to the helm, while also making sure that we are strategically partnering with folks across the institution to be able to share that message. So it's not only Quinna or the folks that are in our office screaming to the rooftops, FSL is important, but it's now everybody's job to be able to do that. So to talk a little bit about my overall career, after undergrad, I spent a little time working in the corporate world and did not like it. And I had told my mom that I wanted to work in higher education. So after undergrad, I went home to take care of my mom. And then about 2 years into that, I was like, Mom, I'm really not happy with the work that I'm doing. Like, I know that this is not my calling. And so my mom said, go do it. And so I've been literally working in higher ed ever since. And I have had highs and I've had lows, but the highs definitely outweigh those lows. And so when I went back to school to get my master's degree, I went back to my alma mater of Western Kentucky, and I worked in housing and residence life. I had the pleasure while being at Western to work in a Panhellenic hall where I oversaw 5 Panhellenic chapters that lived in this facility, and was really able to cultivate some very successful relationships and also mend some relationships with our culturally based fraternal community that was in my undergrad. And I really liked being able to really do that as an NPHC woman, to do that work because it was work that A, was necessary, B, needed to be done, C, nobody else was doing it and thought it was important. However, from the experiences that a lot of the students had about the programming that we were doing, the people that we were bringing into the space to talk to them about different issues and concerns that they do face as Panhellenic women, that told me everything that I needed to know about working in that hall. And so I did that for almost 3 years. Once I graduated, I to KU. So I worked at the University of Kansas afterwards, again in housing, did a lot of work, again, working with the fraternity and sorority life community there. And then left KU, and then I went to Cornhusker Nation. So I worked at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I was there for also 3 years as well too. Specifically there, I worked with the culturally based fraternal community, so MGC and MPHC, in the middle of COVID, I might add. So I moved to UNL during COVID, and was able to see that community when COVID was happening, and then also see them through it on the other side as well too, while expanding their community to over 100 plus members across 13 organizations. So I definitely know what it'll take to also get UWG to get to those numbers as well too. And so that's why I say go West, go Wolves.
Wonderful. Well, we are glad that you're here, and we are glad to finally have somebody at the helm of Greek life at UWG. I know everyone is excited for that. I think that most people watching live who are on the call with us now are very familiar with Greek life, but we will be sharing this with the broader alumni community. And some people may not be quite as familiar. So can you give us just a very brief, like the 1 minute elevator pitch version of Greek life, just a brief overview? What are the different councils? I know you've mentioned a couple, and then talk about how Greek life is part of the fabric of college life.
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So fraternity and sorority life, I think of the leaders among leaders on a college campus. They're typically the ones that are doing civic engagement, community service, philanthropic work. They do a lot of leadership development work as well too. And so when I think of fraternity and sorority life, I think of leaders among leaders. Um, Fraternity and sorority life, also in my opinion, is really rooted in community, regardless of what council you are a part of. So whether that means you're a part of the College Panhellenic Council, whether you're a part of the Interfraternity Council, the Multicultural Greek Council, or the National Panhellenic Council, they're all rooted in community. And being able to, again, I think a lot of Greeks would say this, the reason that they joined is because they wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I think that most people would say that. And so I definitely think that when I think of fraternity and sorority life, is really getting the overall development to be the leader, whether that be in the organization or to be the leader in your future endeavors in your career that you want to be.
And you've listed the 4 different councils.
Yep.
For people who aren't familiar, that there are different councils and kind of different umbrellas like that. What does that mean, just briefly?
Yeah. So here at UWG, we have 4 councils that our fraternities and sororities fall up under. So as I mentioned, the College Panhellenic Council, they represent our historically white sororities. Membership is open to all. The Interfraternity Council is also our historically white fraternities. Again, membership open to all. Our Multicultural Greek Council and our National Panhellenic Council are our culturally based fraternal organizations. And so as of right now for UWG, MGC represents our Latine or Hispanic representing organizations. And then for again, open to all. And then our National Panhellenic Council represents our non-historically Black African American sororities and fraternities. And both MGC and MPHC have fraternities and sororities that fall within them.
Thank you. Like I said, I think most people on the call already had that background, but if anybody watching later and is just curious about Greek life and didn't, I think it's good to have that kind of brief overview there. Can you talk to us more about why Greek life is important at UWG specifically? I think you articulated beautifully why, leaders among leaders, why Greek life is important on a college campus, but why on this college campus at West Georgia, both for our current students right now and for the alumni?
I think what's really important to think about for our current campus where we are, but then also thinking about our alumni, I think our alumni, especially ones that are on this call, those who may not be, I think they can speak very highly of what their experience was in fraternity and sorority life, right? Whether that has been that they've been able to network and meet different people who are part of fraternity or sorority. I think that at UWG, the reason that it is important or it should be important or why it's a part of the fabric is because literally every facet of a fraternity or sorority, they get those experiences on a college campus. And I don't always think that when we talk about fraternity and sorority, like we articulate that those experiences are happening. But when we think about fraternities and sororities, they are businesses. We just have them locally on our campus, but overall they are a business and they run like a business. And so again, when I think about how fraternity and sorority life is a part of the fabric, UWG is a business. Again, we don't talk about it as a business, but it is, right? We have budgets, we have programs that we have to do, we have staff. Again, all of those things are a part of our organizations at the international level, the local level, when we think about our volunteers, and then our local chapters as well, too. All of those pieces, when we think about fraternity and sorority, are, in my opinion, a good comparison to what UWG is as an entity.
Wonderful. I know with our alumni, of course, there's a lot of nostalgia around personal experiences in Greek life. Can you talk to us about some of the significant changes that Greek life has gone through on our campus, particularly since 2020? So how did COVID impact Greek life here at UWG? Maybe what was it like prior to COVID when most of our alum who are on the call were participating? How did COVID change that? And then how are we still feeling those impacts today, even though we're almost 4 years later?
Yeah. So when we think about it being almost 4 years later, that's an entire generation of college students, right? And the thing about it is we still have students who are coming to college who also felt those impacts of COVID, whether they were a little kid when they started, in regards to being in middle school, going to high school, and now going to college. Everybody really felt the impact of COVID. I think that when I'm gonna back it up a little bit and maybe talk about fraternity and sorority life from the perspective of pre-COVID. Um, I think most of the people that are on this call, and for those who are not on the call that may not be familiar with fraternity and sorority life, but fraternity and sorority life has been without a leader for quite some time. And so when I think about how we moved the students through COVID, they maneuvered without a director, associate director, in its place. And so with that, our current students right now are trying to reacclimate to having a leader, after, not necessarily having that traditional oversight from a person for quite some time. And so I think that with that, I think that some of our chapters got a little lax in regards to processes. And so now we're trying to rein them back in, so that they understand the importance of their organization and the longevity of their organizations being on campus. And so with COVID, like I mentioned before, with the students that are coming to campus now, it's not necessarily this overt interest. Like, you have those who are always going to join, right? You have those students who, I know I want to go Greek. You're going to have those students, but a larger part of the population, if not necessarily just at UWG, but I'm gonna say for the field of fraternity and sorority life, really boils down to those maybe joiners. And those are the students that we really need to make sure that we're having those conversations with about what the experience is to be in a fraternity or sorority, because those are the students that are like on the fence. They don't necessarily know what it is. They don't necessarily, they want to get out, they want to adventure, they want to be a part of clubs and things that are on campus, but they're not sure. And so I would say a large impact of that is coming from COVID, right? I think our average college student that's coming to college now, they're on the fence in general about coming to college now. Like, what's the benefit of coming to college when, I could get on TikTok, make a couple viral videos on TikTok, and get money coming in, right? So like that intrinsic value of what a college degree means looks different. And so our approach to fraternity and sorority life does have to look different when we are engaging students. And I definitely think, even when I think about how alumni engage students as well too. I just had a conversation with a charter member of one of our chapters, and she said, I don't know what the experience at UWG is anymore. I couldn't tell you what it is. However, I do know that the way that we talk to students now is not the same that it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I'm going to say a driving force of that was COVID.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did COVID combined with West Georgia not having someone in the director or even the associate director position, with those two kind of double hits coming at the same time, how did that affect participation across the councils and across the organizations? Do you have numbers or percentages, whether those are ballpark or like real numbers that you can share with us and talk about how both of those things in combination affected our percentages and how we're coming back?
Gotcha. I think from my perspective, I don't have the specific numbers right in front of me. I will admit that. But what I will say is that in regards to participation, I think what the chapters did is they looked in-house, in regards to engagement, participation, how to lead, and different things like that. And what I will say is that, for our community as a whole, they are thriving. I mean, they are thirsting for leadership development and opportunities. They want that, right? Rightly so. I think that for fraternities and sororities, we do a good job at developing our members as members of the organization, but sometimes they need the development outside of just what it means to be a member of the organization, member of an e-board. They need that outside development as well too. And I think that that is where fraternity and sorority life comes in, to be able to holistically also develop them as well too. So I would say in regards to where we are with numbers, we're just a little over 600 plus members across all 4 councils. I will say we have gone up. This past fall, we did see an increase of 25% in regards to new members. Again, across all 4 councils as well too. And what I want alumni to hear from me specifically is that I don't only want new members. I want to retain the members I already have. And I think that is the area where we are struggling the most, is the retention of our current members. Some of our members are not having good experiences. I'm just gonna be honest, with the group. Some of them are not having good experiences within their chapters, just because again, when we start thinking about like chapter operations and a little bit of the tax that the students got by not having a professional staff member to really shape and guide what their experience was, that member development fell off. And so really it was put back in the hands of the chapters. And so now we have students trying to develop students with not a whole lot of guidance outside of their organization and their advisors. And their advisors are not all of them are paid. I know some organizations pay, but for the majority, I would say on our campus, I don't believe that they are paid. So this is volunteer work for them, right? And that can look like a second job in a lot of instances, especially when you start thinking about recruitment, when you start thinking about intake, for organizations that do intake, it can be a lot. And so I definitely think when we start thinking about member development, where we are with that, then you couple that with risk management, that also fell to the wayside as well too. What risk assessments are we doing with the chapters to make sure that, you know, when we are engaging in activities, we are being safe? And I don't just mean safe in a physical place, right? I mean full well-being of safety as well too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
25% increase in membership, 600 plus
Yeah.
members sounds like a lot. Is that a lot for West Georgia? Is that below a historical average? Is it above a historical average?
It's a stepping stone. I'll say it that way. I definitely think it's a stepping stone. I know that between myself and conversations that I've had with Dr. Fortune, we started a new tradition last fall where we install all of our council officers together. In that conversation with Dr. Fortune, he led them with the charge. with that charge, he and I both agree that we should have 1 in 4 members of the total undergraduate population for UWG should be members of fraternity and sorority life, right? So I think about, I can't rattle this number off just because I've been looking at some numbers. But when I think about how many students we had enrolled in the fall semester, we had about 8,300, right? So we had 8,300 students who were enrolled, a little over 600 that are currently members of fraternity and sorority life. That's a small population, and I think we can do better.
And so when you're referencing that roughly 8,300, and I haven't double checked the numbers myself, but we're talking about students who are undergrads here on our Carrollton campus. So I know we
Correct.
throw around other numbers around the 12,000 ballpark of enrollment, but that would also include online students, graduate students, that sort of thing. So we're really focused on undergrads here in Carrollton. Perfect.
Yes.
And if we have alumni on the call who don't know Dr. Fortune, can you tell us who he is and why it's important that he is supportive and setting lofty goals like this
Yeah,
for
yeah.
our Greek life here on campus?
So Dr. Fortune is my big boss. So Dr. Fortune is the vice president of student affairs. And so when we think about chain of command, it would be Dr. Fortune. Under Dr. Fortune, specifically for my chain in command, is our dean of students, Dr. Rollinson, who falls under him. And then my direct supervisor is Dr. April Wood Stewart. And then there's me kind of in that chain of command. And so Dr. Fortune is also a fraternity man as well too. He will tell you that. He wears his blue and white proud. And so him being supportive, and I would also go out on a gander as well too and say Dr. Kelly is also supportive of the fraternity and sorority life community as well too. It's important to have their buy-in. It's important to have their backing for this community because having fraternities and sororities on campus is a risk to the institution on all levels, right? But also understanding again, going back to what I said about they are leaders among leaders, right? They should set the standard for what it looks like for leadership on our campus, right? And so again, when we think about how big we would like our community to be, those lofty goals that are being communicated and shared with the chapters, I'm telling them that at every meeting. Like I told them, we want 50 member chapters across all 4 councils. And they looked at me and said, what? Are you talking about today, Quinna? Like we have to get 50 members now? And I'm like, no, it's 2024. But 4 years from now, we should be able to say this was a stepping stone of where we were, and this is how we've incrementally been able to increase the number of members in our chapter.
I know you mentioned earlier that one of our charter members of an institution said, that they just don't know what the experience is like today. So can you tell us, like, what does Greek life look like at UWG today? So what's the experience for a current student here right now in spring 2024?
I think it varies depending on who you ask.
Okay.
And I think for me, what I like for them to be able to say is that they've had similar experiences, and that's not where we are today, this minute, the second, and hour. I think that they're all experiencing different things, which is okay. However, going back to what I said about some people not having positive experiences, what does that mean for the overall health of the chapter as well, too, when people aren't having positive experiences? For the ones that are having positive experiences, they're making friends. You'll see them walking around campus in their letters, talking to people about it. And again, a lot of them have been super excited to go to national conferences. They've shared that and have taken photos and shared those on Instagram. And so again, for the ones that are having positive experiences, it's good. However, the thing that's weighing on them, I will say, in the back of their mind is how do we get numbers? what does university support look like, right? And so it's a constant conversation with them about, that's why they hired me. What are issues that you're having in your chapter? What are things that you want to see from your community? And different pieces like that are always topics of conversation with our chapter leaders. We started doing gavel roundtables last fall when I officially got to campus. We started doing gavel roundtables with all of our chapter presidents to talk through what are some updates that are coming from fraternity and sorority life. What are chapter updates? So now all of the chapter presidents are more knowledgeable and aware of what's going on across council. Each of our council presidents, including Order of Omega and the Greek Programming Board, also provide updates during these meetings as well too. Again, so that this conversation doesn't stop about what's happening in fraternity and sorority life. And so we have those gavel roundtables, but then we also have super gavel meetings, again, with that group of executive leadership, specifically executive presidents of the councils, to again create this cross collaborative partnership with our councils. And so from that, I can share this too. When we start thinking about experience, they're now talking about, okay, well, you're doing this thing in your council. Can we participate in that? Like, can we do that? Does this also include us? Types of conversations, or they're wanting to program more with each other as well too, for the councils. And so I definitely think that we're starting to make some of those strides to be able to produce a more positive community, and showcase the community in a positive light as well too. So that again, when our students who have never engaged with fraternity and sorority life, they are engaging, and it is a positive experience that they walk away with.
It sounds like there's a lot that has happened in was it 5 months you've been here? 6 months?
Yes.
Less than 6 months still. So talk to us about, I mean, you've set some goals, but where do you see Greek life in 5 years, 10 years? Like, where are we headed? And so how do you take those goals that you've set out for yourself and bring those into reality? And I guess, are there other goals as well? And we've mentioned membership and a percentage of the student body we want to have, but what other goals do you have? And how do you bring all that into reality of UWG in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think really what my first year, I wanted that to be stepping stones. I didn't want to do any drastic changes for any of our chapters or any of our advisors. I didn't want to do drastic changes. There were some changes that were made that were inevitable though, that we had to change because the process was not working in totality. And so I think first, like I said, my first year was just stepping stones. I think year two, the way that we're breaking it down is by year in regards to goals. And so year two, I really want to start laying down the bricks and the foundation of what fraternity and sorority life is supposed to be. And then each year build upon that so that we have a robust program. So that looks like us being able to hire more professional staff to be able to support this community. Because I and the grad students cannot do this alone. Right when we start thinking about that. Some of our other goals, and I think there's some of the alum that are on this call where I had talked about sending our students to conferences to be able to, again, get some of that leadership development. What I will say for those that are on the call who heard me say this before, I'm taking them this week, just so you know. I am taking some of our students this week to AFLV, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana, so that they can get, it's literally 4 days of training that they get. They have a pretty lengthy schedule, but we are taking them to that because again, it's important that not only do they do all of this work on campus, but we also should be pouring into our students. And so being able to each year grow our delegation that we take to conferences such as this, as well too, right? I think when I see 5 years, at the 5 year mark, we will embark on a whole new class of students, right? We'll be redoing a cycle again in 5 years, right? And so what I would hope by year 5 is that the foundation is laid. Now all we're doing is tweaking, right? We're just doing some fine tuning by year 5, being able to add in some additional educational pieces, again, being able to continue to build. I would hope that by year 10, because then again, we're at a new set of students again, is that we've reached those goals in regards to there being 50 plus members in the community. I think the changes that we're making now, we can definitely see in the future, especially by year 10.
Now, I just pulled up the weather for Indianapolis, Indiana this week. You're gonna tell our Georgia kids about bringing a coat
Yep.
conference. Yeah,
Told
okay.
them I told them it was cold. I also told them it's usually snowing or ice. Since I'm pretty familiar with the weather in that area. I did tell them ahead of time. It was supposed to be rainy and muggy while we were there.
Okay.
So I'm grateful for that it's not ice and snow.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a snowflake in this forecast, but there are some low numbers. Okay. I
Yeah.
know you'll take care of our great life folks and bring them all home with all their fingers and toes.
Yes.
I want to shift a little bit into some conversations that you've had with alumni and questions that I know you've probably heard because I've heard them as well. But for folks who are on the call or maybe watching later who have been wondering some things, I know one thing I've heard a lot of conversation about is Greek organizations that maybe used to be on campus but aren't here any longer. And there are alumni of those organizations that they would love to see them brought back. But what does that look like as a process? How does an organization that's no longer on campus come back? Or how does a new organization get started? Those may be two separate questions.
Yeah, it is. So I'm actually in the middle of revamping the process right now, actually, on what that will look like. So it's a little bit more communicative in your face about what the process is instead of like word of mouth or I think I heard that UWG has a new director and I think this is what the email is to get in contact with them. I want us to be a little bit more communicative about what that process is. I haven't gotten it approved yet, so I can't share specifics. But what I can do is maybe higher level of what that process will look like. And so initially for whether you're an organization that used to be on campus, so I think about ATO, and I think it's TriSig that used to be here, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's an org. So like orgs like that would like to, or Kappa Alpha Psi as an example, those organizations wanted to come back into the fold and be a part of UWG again. There would be an interest form that they would fill out that again would state whether they are a new interested organization or an organization that would like to reactivate with us. They'd fill out that application. That application would be shared with myself, my graduate team, and then also with the council that they may be affiliated with as well too. What we would do from there is invite them to send some additional information to us. So we had a portfolio on the organization and where they stood in that moment that they were either applying to come to campus or applying to come back. There would be a presentation process where they would either be approved to move to the next step, deferred for a year, or rejected. Those will be the three statuses for them. And then post that process, if they move forward with being approved, we would walk them through the steps of again getting Wolf Connect, making sure that we got a constitution and bylaws from the organization, making sure they understood our insurance policy that we have on or guidelines that we have on campus. And so they would go through kind of a probationary period. Post that probationary period, they would then say, hey, we've reached the end of our probationary period with the council, and we would like to seek full membership within the council. And then it would be up to the council to be able to vote those organizations in. It's kind of what the process will look like. So that typically is an 18-month kind of process. It's kind of how it would, depending on how fast things move. But it would around 18 months is how long that process would be, depending upon the organization. Again, like I said, that we haven't necessarily had a process in quite some time. And so just waiting to get that approved. What I will say in the intermediate as well, so I know for Panhellenic, specifically, there's some national rules that we have to follow, that kind of supersedes that process that I just explained. So for our College Panhellenic Council, and so we have to meet our recruitment numbers before we can ever bring a Panhellenic chapter back to campus. And so we have to meet those goals for at least 4 years to be able to do that. So that's also why we have these lofty goals of getting more students into our organizations, is because for specifically for Panhellenic, right, they can't invite an organization to campus until we met some of those recruitment goals, as an example.
So is it a priority of West Georgia to bring those organizations back to campus right now? And can you talk about the why or why not behind that? And then also, is that process alumni spearheaded? Is it students who are taking this on? Is it the professional staff on campus? Like, who is it that says we want this back?
Gotcha. So for, I think it depends on the organization. I'm gonna just be honest. I think that it can happen in any of those areas. It can be student driven, alumni driven, if the national organization allows that, or it can be staff driven. So any one of those avenues would be appropriate. One of the things that I've done at former institutions is that, and I think is also just a common practice for fraternity and sorority life practitioners, is they will put a call out to say either we are open or closed to expansion for our institution. I think where we are right now, I think we've got to get the train on the tracks for where we are right now. So I'm not saying that it's not a priority for those organizations to come back. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think in regards to some of the limitations depending upon the council and or organization and communication, that is where the priority will fall. Yep.
And you've had a lot of conversations with alumni through various channels, and you've participated in alumni board meetings and just held a larger meeting that we had a lot of alum who are directly involved with their chapters come back on campus, and probably just other conversations from the people that you've met over the last several months. So what are some of the questions that you've seen from alumni over and over, or ones that you feel like are significant that you think maybe there's people either on the call or watching later that probably have those same questions and would love those answers? Because I know you're probably hearing things that maybe as director of alumni, I'm not getting the exact same questions.
I think one of the primary questions, and I don't necessarily think that this will come through UK, but how do we get our numbers up? That's been a major conversation. And like I said, I think it's a both and, like I said before, in regards to membership development and retention, and then also getting new members in the organization, that we have to do both in order for the chapters to succeed. When I think about other questions that have come up, I know this is a question that we'll kind of sort of talk about later, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up now because I think it's appropriate. But how do we get involved
Yep.
with the chapters in our organizations or with our office? I know moving forward, one of the biggest things that I would like to have is a calendar for alumni. So like, I'm gonna just use this as an example because it was used in a conversation. I think I saw Miss Amy get on. Yeah, she's on here. Where she was talking about Chi Phi, they had a very large and successful anniversary weekend that they put on. I believe it was last year, right? And I actually just had this conversation with my supervisor, April, as well too, in regards to how do we celebrate our chapters when they are having monumental moments in their chapter, like anniversaries and things like that. And so really being able to craft out time and support those in a large way as well too. I think alumni coming back for an event is probably the biggest way that they can get involved. Again, depending upon what your organization's rules are about involvement, I want to make sure that is very clear on this recording. I don't want to be misquoted anywhere that Quinna said, "Oh, y'all could just come back and do whatever." I did not say that. Depending upon your organization's guidelines and procedures in regards to what involvement looks like, please make sure you follow those. But I will say, right, our campus is open at the same time. We're not barring people from coming to open events either. And so just know, whatever that level of engagement is, we want you to come and participate. I think we are starting a lot of new traditions within fraternity and sorority life. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And I would love to hear from you all later, or you can email me what were some traditions that were popular when you were on campus that our students might not have context of, right? But I also will say, I think I told the alumni that I had met with at alumni board meeting, we want you all to also participate in Wear Your Letter Wednesdays. That is a real thing. We have been participating in that. Our students have been wearing their letters a lot more around campus and as well too, to show that pride here at UWG. But we also want you all to participate in those types of festivities as well too, and tag us, right? So we can repost you so people know that you're still engaged with fraternity and sorority life, although you've graduated. And so I will say those are just some limited type of ways that alumni can get involved. But again, I think I also want to hear from you all about what engagement that you all want as well too, and for us to be able to craft those moments.
So how can you hear from the alumni? How can they reach you? Do you want them to come through the alumni office with our alumni@westga.edu email? Do you want them to reach out directly? How do you hear and gather their thoughts and ideas? Because I know there probably will be thoughts and questions after this conversation and after people watch the recording and have future conversations with you too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally okay with being reached out to directly, or if I know Mandela and I just chatted today as well too, about upcoming events, and so if there is some connectivity there with the Greek task force as well. I think whichever way that we want to decide to collect that information, I'm completely on board for.
And for the folks who aren't familiar, I know I do see several alumni board members and members of that Greek task force on here. So we do have an alumni board of directors, and they all participate in various task forces. And one of those is a Greek life task force. And so they are very involved with Greek life here at UWG. So quick shameless plug that the application to be an alumni board member is open until February 1st, available all over our social and on our website for alumni. So if you're interested in that level of participation, that's available as well. What about people who maybe don't have the capacity in their schedules right now to take on something as much as like an alumni board position, but they want to follow along. They want to see what's happening. They want to know what Greek life looks like at West Georgia. You mentioned tagging. Where can they follow on social media or anywhere else?
Yeah, good question, Kate. So dun, 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 dun. Fraternity and Sorority Life officially got our Facebook page and our Instagram page back. Woo. And so you can follow us at UWG FSL underscore on Instagram if you're on Instagram. And then for our Facebook page is UWG Fraternity and Sorority Life. There's 2 pages, just so you are aware. They literally don't look alike. So if you see a round circle with Fraternity and Sorority Life as the picture, that's the right page. I couldn't get the other page back. I tried.
And we can share from the alumni social media as well. We can pop some things up into stories. Quinna, if you'll remind me, we can coordinate that this week and get those links out, and we can share and get people following along with Fraternity and Sorority Life specifically. Also with our alumni page, we do a lot together and a lot of collaborative events. So information will be available in both spaces.
Yeah, the only other thing I will say too is we will one of the things that we're starting up as well for Fraternity and Sorority Life is we want to do member spotlights as well, which would also include our alum. So again, there's some engagement from our alumni in that space as well too. And as soon as we have that link live, I'll make sure that Kate has that so you all can get it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have been going for almost an hour, which I figured that we would with the questions that we've gotten and the ones that I know a lot of alum shared with us. But do you have final thoughts that you'd like to leave the alumni with as we wrap up tonight?
I will say I'm super excited to be here. And I really do look forward to building authentic relationships with you all. And so please know that if you ever have a question about something that's going on in Fraternity and Sorority Life, or there's an idea or an event that you'd like for, us to collaborate on or to partner with, or if there's even opportunities, with the different capacities that you may hold in the work field or any of those things, please do not hesitate to reach out. I do know that our students are looking for opportunity. And so I'm big on making sure that they are aware of opportunities that are out there for them. And so like, I'm gonna just use this as a quick example. For our gavel roundtables, we do bring in special guests. And so, for example, last week we just had someone who came in from the Alzheimer's Association to talk to them about different volunteering opportunities, to really educate them on Alzheimer's and how to get students involved in that work. And so we have those opportunities available if you are interested in participating. And so never hesitate to reach out and ask the question or give us any, feedback, respectfully, of course.
Well, thank you so much for your ideas, for your time, for your openness. I know we've had some tough questions from alumni, and I think that we've addressed some of those tonight. We hope to continue to have conversations. We're not going to stop it after one conversation here. We will probably do future conversations, whether like this or in other venues and formats as we continue on with your time at West Georgia. And I know I feel like we have worked together for a long time. It feels like it has been more than just a few months. You've fit in seamlessly to the fabric here at UWG. But since you are still new, we do want to extend from alumni another welcome to UWG. We are glad to have you as part of the fabric of our fraternity and sorority life, and to see the goals that you've set with the senior leadership here at the university and where we go. When we have this conversation, looking back 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now, it'll be really fun. I think really exciting to see how much Greek life has grown under your leadership and where we've gone since 2024.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We're excited too. And with that, we will go ahead and pause the recording. Thank everybody for joining us. And of course, if you have other follow-up questions, you can email us here at Alumni, and we will make sure that Quinna gets those, and we will keep everybody updated as to where you can follow Fraternity and Sorority Life and how you can connect with us here on campus. So thank you to everyone watching live. We appreciate your time this evening. And Quinna, thank you, of course, for your time as well. And for engaging with our alum. Okay, bye, everyone.